Good afternoon everyone. Today we are going to learn about lubricants. I am Professor Sukruti Joshi from Department of Chemistry at Royal University, Ahmedabad. Basically, a lubricant is a substance, often liquid, introduced between the two moving surfaces to reduce the friction between them, or you can say to reduce the friction, to reduce the heat and to reduce the wear and tear between the two moving surfaces. A fluid which is introduced in between the moving parts in order to reduce the friction, generated heat and wear and tear of the machine parts are called a lubricant. This process of introducing lubricant is called a lubrication. Now there are various types of lubricants are there. From that, automotive oils are there, gear and transmission oils are there, and automotive greases are there. Different type of companies produces different type of lubricants, and according to that, or you can say that according to their application or according to or depending upon their need, we are defining that type of a lubricant. For an example, if we are using it in a two-wheelers, at that time it is known as an automotive oils. We are using if it is in a gear and transmission, or you can say an engine oil. It is also different from the gear oil. Next is the composition of lubricant. A composition of lubricant is divided into two parts. 90% of the lubricant is a petroleum oil or a mineral oil, while 10% is an additive. So basically here 90% is the base oil, that is the petroleum or mineral oils, and less than 10% is an additive. Basically here additives are added to improve the quality, to improve the properties and to improve the characteristic of that lubricant. A non-liquid lubricant basically contains, there are different type of lubricants are there, like non-liquid lubricants, solid lubricants, semi-solid lubricants, etc. So here non-liquid lubricants are basically grease powder that are dry graphite, molybdenum disulfide, Teflon tapes, etc. used in plumbing. They all are basically a dry graphite, or you can say a solid lubricants. Those non-liquid lubricants provide lubrication at higher temperature up to 350 degree centigrade. When we are needing or when we are having our application which will run at a very high temperature, that is 350 degree centigrade or 360 degree centigrade, at that time these lubricants are used. Various additives are used in lubricants. For an example, antioxidants are added like aromatic amines, phenols, sulfides and various phosphates. Next is the corrosion inhibitor, that is an amino salts and salts of sulfonic acids. Next is anti-wear agents. They are basically tricresyl phosphates. Foam inhibitors, they are glycerols which will inhibit the formation of foam into the machines. Now there are basically three functions of lubricants. As we know that it will reduce wear and tear, it will reduce generated heat and it will reduce the friction between two moving surfaces. So according to that, different functions are also there. It should act as a thermal barrier and reduces friction, wear and tear and prevents the welded joints. It avoids seizure of moving surfaces by providing a lubrication between them. It acts as a coolant, that means it will absorb the heat that is generated between the two moving surfaces. It acts as a seal and prevents entry of dust, moisture and dirt between the two moving parts. So basically it will prevent a machine, or you can say that it will increase the efficiency of any machine or machinery. Some lubricants act as a corrosion inhibitors, thus reduce the operational cost of that product. Basic characteristic, or you can say a good lubricating oil should have this much properties. First one is a very high boiling point, adequate viscosity should be there, low freezing point should be there, high oxidation resist, it should have a high oxidation resistance, non-corrosive properties should be there, good thermal stability has been there in the good lubricating oil so that it can work at very good temperatures and it will increase the efficiency of any of the machine. Next is the classification of lubricants. Lubricants can be divided into four different types. First is a solid lubricant, then liquid lubricant, semi-solid lubricant and last one is a synthetic lubricant. Solid lubricants are the lubricants which are in the solid state, or you can say which are in the powder form. Liquid lubricants are the lubricants, or you can say basically oils are liquid lubricants. Next one, semi-solid lubricants. The lubricant which has either which doesn't have any solid state or which doesn't has a liquid state, it will have a semi-solid state. Therefore, it is known as semi-solid lubricant. And last one is a synthetic lubricant. It is a man-made lubricant, or you can say you are going to have your lubricant which has a property that can work at your temperatures. So according to that, different type of lubricants are there. Solid lubricant, for an example, wax, talc, mica, molybdenum disulfide and graphite powder, or you can say dry graphite. They all are in the solid lubricant form, or you can say in a powder form. Next one is a semi-solid lubricant. For an example, grease and Vaseline. They are not in a solid form, even not in a liquid form. They both are in a middle form, that is known as a semi-solid form. Next is a liquid lubricant, basically various mineral oils, vegetable oils and animal oils. All are liquid lubricants, all are known as liquid lubricants. Next one is a synthetic lubricant. For an example, polyglycols, silicones, organic amines and imines and amides. They all are man-made lubricant, or you can say they are manufactured lubricants which are going to use. Now basically three type of lubrication are there. As we know that applying process of lubricant is known as lubrication. So various types of lubrications are there. First is a thick film lubrication, second one is a thin film lubrication, and last one is the extreme pressure lubrication. From that, a thick film lubrication, this is also known as a hydrodynamic or a fluid film lubrication. Two sliding moving surfaces are there, or you can say one is a moving surface, another one is a steady surface, are separated from each other by a thick film of fluid here, that is 1000 angstroms. So it is divided, or you can say that it can be separated out by a thick film of the lubricant. Therefore, it is known as thick film lubrication. The coefficient of friction in such cases is as low as 0.001 to 0.03. Lubricants used are hydrocarbon oils. Basically, oils are used in thick film lubrication. They are mainly used in delicate instruments like watches, clocks, light machines like sewing machines and various scientific instruments like microscopes, glasses, etc. So here as you can see that this is a moving part and this one is a steady surface. When you are applying a lubricant here of 1000 angstrom, then that lubrication is known as thick film lubrication. Next is a thin film lubrication. Two surfaces are there, both are moving in the opposite direction. At that time, a wear and tear, heat is generated and a friction will be there in between two surfaces. At that time, this lubrication is applied. This lubrication is also known as the boundary lubrication. It is used for a high load condition. Very thin film of a lubricant is going to apply on both the surfaces, or it is absorbed by physical and chemical forces, or both. The coefficient of friction is 0.05 to 0.15. The lubricants used for boundary indication or boundary lubrication should have a very high viscosity, it should have a very good oiliness, it should have a resistance to heat and oxidation. For an example, organic oils, vegetable oils, graphite and molybdenum disulfide and even mineral oils are known as or are widely used in thick film or thin film lubrication. Next is extreme pressure lubrication. This lubrication is for very high pressure, very high temperature and very high speed machines or speedy sliding surfaces. Extreme pressure additives are used along with the lubricants. Mainly they are the compounds of chlorine, sulfur and phosphorus. They all can work at a very high temperature. As we know that if we have our work or heavy workload will be there, at that time a very high or a very high speed will be there, velocity will be high, therefore temperature will be high, due to that pressure will be high, due to that friction will be high and wear and tear and heat is also generated at a very high rate. So at that time we are going to use this type of lubrication. These additives form a solid surface films like of chlorine, sulfur and phosphorus. A high melting point or a metal compounds are good lubricants. For an example, graphites, molybdenum disulfides for drawing wires made up of mild steel. Here a very high pressure will be there and therefore we are going to use it. Thank you.